If you want to take color infrared photos like this one on film, you only really have two options. Either you sell your car to buy a roll of Aerochrome, or you use a technique called trichrome photography. The process is fairly straightforward. You just take 3 black and white photos with different color filters for each photo, and then you combine them in an image editing software to get a full color image. To get color infrared photos, all you need to do is use infrared sensitive black and white film and swap out the red filter for an infrared filter. I became obsessed with this process a couple years ago when I made a video about taking color infrared photos with film. At the time I was pleased with the results, but the photos weren't quite what I was expecting. I was trying to recreate the look of Aerochrome, but instead I got a more generic color infrared look. This makes sense because besides the infrared filter, I was using really cheap DIY filters for the color channels. This setup worked well enough, but I really wanted to see if I could get closer to the Aerochrome look. So a few years later, I've decided to do an upgrade. This time around, I'm using a Hoya R72 filter for the red channel, a 25A red filter for the green channel, and a Tiffin Green 58 filter plus a yellow 8 filter for the blue channel. You may think it's weird that the green and blue channel photos aren't using green and blue filters, but this combination actually matches Aerochrome's color sensitivity. It's also very recommended that you use an IR cut filter for the non-infrared shots so that stray infrared light doesn't mess with the color balance in the final image. I decided to use Rollei Retro 400S for the film, which is almost identical to Rollei Infrared. I've tested both, and they basically have the exact same infrared sensitivity and contrast. As you can see, I decided to use a Hasselblad 500cm for the camera, but for reasons we will get into, this ended up being a bit of a mistake. The first photo I'm capturing here is just a picture of a rock. I kind of like how the light's hitting it. There's a lot of green around here, a lot of trees, so I think it's going to be a good example image for color infrared. Yeah. This is how the first trichrome turned out. Compared to the trichromes I took the first time I tried this, these colors are much closer to the colors of Aerochrome, but still not perfect. The sky is a little too bright for one thing, and that's partly because of overexposure. Also, you may have noticed that the corners are looking a little funky. This is because the color filters I'm using are 49mm filters, whereas this lens on the Hasselblad is supposed to take closer to 58mm filters. I was hoping there wouldn't be any noticeable vignette, but alas. This one was almost impossible to color balance because, once again, I messed up the exposures. The infrared shot looks good, but the red and green shots are a little hot, which translates to crappy colors. At least the overexposure made the vignette less noticeable. It was at this point while shooting this roll that I had an epiphany. Using a circular polarizer might get me closer to the Aerochrome look by darkening the sky. I didn't really know how a circular polarizer would work with infrared film, but I gave it a try anyway. All 3 filter shots ended up underexposed with this one, which gave the vegetation a lot more of a purplish red color. Even though there's a lot of shadow detail missing, I actually kind of like the moodiness of this shot. What I don't like is this blob of red at the top of the frame. As it turns out, the film back on this particular Hasselblad isn't very well protected against stray light. As a result, using sensitive film like Delta 3200 or any infrared film results in light leaks. So note to self, definitely don't use this camera for infrared trichromes. The exposure of the last trichrome is slightly better and there's less of a noticeable light leak, but I still don't like the colors that much. Again, the best explanation I have for the color shift being off is overexposure. The silver lining of this photo is that I think it's pretty cool that the flowers are a completely different color than they are in real life. After shooting the first roll of Retro 400S, I wasn't crazy about the shots I got, but I did collect some really good data on how best to shoot these trichromes. With this newfound knowledge, I felt ready to try again. This time I loaded my Yashica 12, since my smaller filters wouldn't create a vignette with this camera. Plus, the fact that the Yashica 12 is a TLR means I can see the composition clearly even while the infrared filter is on the taking lens. Okay, now we're talking. This is one of my favorite infrared trichromes I've ever taken. The vegetation is a pleasing color, and both the sky and water are just the right brightness thanks to the circular polarizer. I especially love zooming in and seeing details like this little pink landscape peeking over the beach. Shout out to this guy for unknowingly staying still for all 3 photos. This shot also turned out good, but I think I overexposed it slightly for the infrared shot. The reds are just a tiny bit too powerful. And here we have another excellent shot. The composition is simple but effective, and I really feel like I nailed the exposure to get the Aerochrome colors that I want. It's also a plus that the lack of clouds in the sky helps hide the color fringing you get from trichromes, making it look even more like an authentic Aerochrome shot. In a perfect world, there would have been absolutely no wind so that the trees were perfectly still, but regardless, I'm still really happy with this one. I'm not going to use the circular polarizer for this one. The dynamic range of this last shot actually reminds me a lot of slide film, which is to say the dynamic range is very limited with trichromes, at least when you use Retro 400S. The blue channel shot of this trichrome was actually a misfire that happened while I was winding the camera, so it came out quite blurry. Regardless, I still consider this shot a success. The colors look about as good as I was expecting from this lighting scenario. Shout out to Rolly for going the extra mile and putting an actual sticker on their film. Like, that's great. I don't have to lick anything. Perfect. So yeah, that was me trying to recreate the look of Aerochrome. And honestly, I feel like I nailed it for a couple of the shots. Sure, there's some obvious limitations with the trichrome photography approach, but these photos really scratched the Aerochrome itch that I've had ever since I got into film photography. If you want to try doing this yourself but don't know how to edit the images together, check out my first video on trichrome photography where I show how to do it in GIMP, or check out Attic Darkroom's video where he shows how to do it in Photoshop. Thanks for watching, everybody.